3 of us camping out on this little boat for 4 days on Prince William Sound. Alaska is the terrestrial adventurer's final frontier, but seeing the remote Alaska backcountry by boat is an experience I will never forget. We start this trip with a drive to Whittier, Alaska with the boat in tow. Whittier is this little town about 60 miles southeast of Anchorage at the head of the Passage Canal on Prince William Sound. The 2016 census estimate for Whittier was 214 people living there, almost all of which live in a single building. In World War II, the Army used the port as a military facility, and they constructed a way to get troops and supplies to and from Whittier by land, and that was a single one-way railroad track underneath the mountain. To this day, that's the only way to drive into Whittier, through the train tunnel, one direction at a time. We topped off with fuel and we were soon leaving Whittier behind us. Before we drop anchor for the evening, Brian has a few spots he wants to take us to. Brian here is Chris's father-in-law, and Chris has tagged along on several of these excursions with Brian before, but this is all completely new to me. I imagine Brian's attitude is similar to the flying community. We can do the same trip over and over again, but seeing somebody new react to their new experience never gets old. The boat we're in is Brian's 22-foot c-dory cruiser powered by a Yamaha 80-horse 4-stroke, and for extra fuel, a large fuel drum. Even though I did come to Alaska to spend the time filming the flying series with Chris, I can already tell that this 4-day excursion is going to be one of the best adventures of the trip. I gotta work with it here because the snow causes quite the exposure nightmare, but this is absolutely amazing. Very breathtaking. Huge snow melt right here, goes way up into the mountains. Huge waterfall that we can see way up there. Little tunnel right there in the snow, and then there's another one right up here where the melted water is rushing through and eroding the snow away, melting it away. Absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. Ah. We're actually on a mission this time. I'm gonna collect some glacier water.
Mm-hmm. The best water on Earth.
All right, that worked.
Wait till you try that.
That's the best water I've ever had. Brian came back to shore and we climbed back aboard. We continued motoring around in Harriman Fjord where this trifecta of glaciers descend to the saltwater, Cox, Berry, and Cascade glaciers. As you get closer up to the glaciers, there's tons of icebergs floating around in the water because of the large chunks of ice calving off and falling down into the water and breaking. And of course the icebergs floating in the water everywhere attracts some of the wildlife. With the afternoon light fading on us, we left the field of icebergs for open water and opened up the throttle in search of a place to anchor for the evening. The c-dory has a bow compartment good for storage or for 2 adults to sleep comfortably in, and the table folds down into a bed for 1. Once we picked our spot and we were anchored up, we fired up the stove and made a hot dinner of halibut and cheese and potato soup. Tomorrow, we'll take the kayaks out.
We're off.
We left the boat anchored and started our paddle up the Surprise Inlet towards Surprise Glacier. Here's a look at the GPS track file from my Garmin InReach. We started the paddle at the boat and went about 2.15 miles before stopping on an island that was revealed by low tide.
That's right. Oh yeah, that looks good.
Because the tide's coming in if you lay it.
Yeah. So the ice, you see these are kind of white, not so blue, but those back ones are blue. That big one we passed is blue, and that's because the more pressure the ice is under, the more dense it is, and it doesn't allow the full color spectrum to pass through, and the only color we see is blue. That's why glacier ice is usually blue. I've never seen green ice or purple ice. Actually, you kind of do see purple sometimes. It'll get that much pressure.
We have about another 2.2 miles to go before getting to a beach flat enough to get out of the kayaks. Surprise is a very active glacier, so we want a beach that's close enough to see the face of the glacier, but not so close that we risk catching a swell if a large enough chunk of ice calves off into the water. Pretty awesome. That's ice. As we get closer to the glacier, the temperature of both the water and the air drops significantly. When we left the boat, I was fine in what I was wearing, but now we have a breeze racing down the glacier, blasting us with an ice-cold wind.
Here goes. Get her with the big one.
We paddled around in the inlet amongst the icebergs and watched Surprise Glacier shed several huge chunks of ancient ice.
Oh. Middle. A little tired, but amazing day. Saw a lot of good action at the glacier, had fun paddling, seeing all the icebergs, had a really good lunch and a nap, and we're thoroughly tired. We feel like we've achieved a lot, but we didn't achieve anything.
All right, well, we're back at the boat. Kayaks tied up. And beautiful view. We just came from around the corner that way.
Ahoy!
13 miles.
Sounds about right.
13. Day 3 on the water. We got the water jug. We're gonna fill it up right over here. We collected our water and left Harriman Fjord bound for another spot Brian wants to take us to. Blackstone Bay is south of the Passage Canal where Whittier is. It's just on the other side of the mountain range. Blackstone Glacier is a spot Brian wants to kayak at, but first he's going to let Chris and I off for a little hike up to the Lawrence Glacier.
This is my favorite spot in all of Prince William Sound that I've seen so far. Got a nice waterfall. You got this beautiful waterfall here, the glacier, all these birds in this rookery. Pretty nice. We are having moose burritos. This is moose meat, beans and corn, tortillas, lettuce, cheese, peppers, onions. Out here on the bay on solstice.
Gourmet, huh?
You done good, Chris.
Yes.
Summer solstice means that this is the longest day of the year, and I think it was pretty well spent. Alaska summers have very little darkness to begin with, and the darkest it got on this night wasn't even enough to consider it nighttime. Brian got up before Chris or I did the next morning, and he took my camera out and got some shots of the beautiful morning light on the mountains. 3 of us camping out on this little boat for 4 days on Prince William Sound. I can confidently say that this experience will live with me forever. With my flying videos, I always try to associate some sort of a lesson or message, and this excursion is no different. I came to Alaska to film a ton of flying with Chris, and we did, but I only had a limited time here before I returned to the lower 48. We nixed a few flying trips to make time for this trip, and we made it work without hesitation. See, even though boating and kayaking were not written into the plans for my 3 weeks in Alaska, Chris assured me that this would end up being the highlight of my entire trip, and I knew he was going to be right. I suppose the message I'm trying to get across here is that you can't be afraid to deviate from the planned route, because on that detour you might just find a life-changing experience. Just like Chris and I deviating from our flying plans to make time for this truly life-changing experience on the Sound with Brian. All 3 of us worked pretty hard to tell the story of this entire experience, so if you liked the film, do give it a like and subscribe if you haven't, and if you would like to, and be sure to leave a comment down below. If you'd like to support this channel, you can head over to aviation101.com/store and shop merch and gear there. Huge thanks to Chris from Angle of Attack and Brian for making this experience possible and helping with all the filming. If you haven't seen the entire Alaska series, be sure and check out the Alaska 2019 playlist on the channel, and again, I hope you enjoyed this extra episode from the Alaska backcountry. Until next time, I want you to stay happy, stay healthy, stay current, and stay proficient in whatever you do, whether it's on the ground, on the sea, or in the sky. I want you to fly safe. We'll see you next time.